Hi, my name's Adam Cole, and this is Down to Earth's Garden to Table series. Today we're going to be planting tomatoes from seeds. Tomatoes are one of the first plants that many people start from seed, and it's not hard to see why. There are many varieties of seed tomato that you can get that you can't find in stores in start form. There also is a great feeling of satisfaction when you can see the tomato from the very beginning to the very end, from the seed in one hand all the way up to the great tomato that you're eating at the end. Today we're going to be working with 4 different tomatoes, and I'm also throwing a pepper in because their needs are very similar and you can get away with doing both at the same time. We'll be working with the stupus or stupichka, which is a small indeterminate tomato. Indeterminate means it will keep growing, keep producing throughout the season. This is an older form of tomato, an heirloom variety. And excellent tomato, really early, very great flavor for being an early tomato. It's a real standby in the gardens of the Pacific Northwest. Another variety we're trying today is the Rosso Sicilian, which is a saucing and canning tomato. This is a determinate variety, so as compared to the stupichka, which is an indeterminate, will grow and continue to produce tomatoes throughout the season. The Rosso Sicilian, as a determinate variety, has been bred for canning or processing. And these tomatoes will tend to get smaller in general. Their maximum size tends to be more of a little bush than a large vine, and they'll flush most of their fruit at the same time. So they tend to make fewer tomatoes total, but they make more at the same time, which is great if you're going to be canning or drying and you want them all at once. Third variety that we'll be doing is just the beefsteak tomato. Beefsteak is a traditional large slicing tomato, very commonly grown, but it's an excellent tomato. Don't let its commonality deter you. The third variety we're doing, just for some, I guess a little bit of spice, is orange currant. Orange currant is a tiny little tomato, currant tomato. They're born in great big profuse bundles, I guess you'd say. Sweet, easy to eat, great for salads. And then finally for our pepper, we're looking at chimeo, which is a sweet and hot pepper that it would be great for making into sauces, also for drying. So what you need when you do tomatoes from seed is a tray with a solid bottom. This is going to be what you set your containers in. A cell tray or some small containers for putting the soil and tomatoes seeds into. Today we're using a 48 cell tray that actually will break into what you'll probably see at nurseries, which is little tray packs. So you can split these up. They're not particularly strong, so you have to be careful at some points not to let it break when there's weight in it, but they can be easily maneuvered by splitting them into their 6-packs. A dome. This is only going to be used at the very beginning until we have the seedlings sprout, but it's very important for maintaining humidity and allowing the seeds to be in the environment they need to germinate. Also very important to get little labels. There's plastic, wood labels. You can also make a map on paper, but once they're in the soil, you're not going to know which one is which. So it's very important to keep track by using labels or some other method. Water. You're going to need water because the tomato seeds and pepper seeds require a humid environment for germination. I also like to put a little bit of water in a spray bottle. This allows you to, with minimal disturbance of the soil, rehydrate if it seems to be getting dried out in a minor fashion versus fully dried out. A seedling heat mat. Unless you live in very warm climates, it's great to start tomatoes inside your house a month or 2 before when you want to put them out. This will keep the soil, you put the tray on top of this, and it will keep the soil warm and allow for the seeds to germinate as rapidly as possible. And then finally, I like to use a chopstick. This is a coffee stirring stick. This makes it really easy to pick up individual tiny seeds and place them into the cells. Last but not least, we also are going to want some sort of material. In this case, we're using our Pro Organic mix. This is a soil it's an excellent all-purpose soil, but it works very well for seeding. Most all-purpose potting soil should be avoided because they tend to be excessively moist, and while you need consistent moisture for seeding, you don't want it to be too moist. Then you can have fungus gnat problems or fungal problems that occur. You can also use earth plugs or pre-hydrated little plugs that you'd put the seed into, or Jiffy pellets, which are little peat pellets that will, once rehydrated, pop up and you can place them in there. I tend to prefer a seedling mix or a soil mix. It just fills the area more effectively and keeps oxygen from flowing around the outside and drying out more quickly. If you can't find this pro-organic mix, just look for a mix that is recommended for seeding. Don't go with the standard potting soil because you might waste a couple weeks and then have your plants damp off, get a fungal problem, and it's better just to start with what you want. It'll maintain a much more effective moisture rate, and that's really what you're looking for. So the first step is to take your cell tray and place it in your solid bottom tray. That's what's going to catch the water and allow you to most effectively water the plant, is this bottom tray here. And then you're going to fill your trays with your seedling mix. And you want to make sure that if you see any clumps, you break them up. Make sure that it's a fine material. It's one of the things that distinguishes a seedling mix from a standard potting soil, is that you're not going to have as many clumps, but they do occur in the bag. And so make sure you break those up, and you don't want to press hard on the soil, but you do want to make sure that you fill each of these cells uniformly so that they don't shrink down in the middle of planting. All right, now that we've got the seedling tray full, it's a great idea to make your labels ahead so that you can place them into the individual trays before you put your seeds in there. Because again, the seeds all look the same. So now that you've got your cells labeled, you'll want to do some bottom watering. Now, I prefer watering into the tray because it allows water to wick up and it doesn't disturb the top of the soil, doesn't cause any erosion within the cells, and it won't move your seeds around once you place them. So almost all of the watering I'm going to do from now until these are planted outside is going to be bottom watering. With these broken cell trays like this, where I can take out a 6-pack, it makes it very easy to water into the tray like this. And you don't want to fill the tray up. You probably want a third to a maximum of halfway full. All right. You definitely want to make sure that the bottom of the cell is in contact with the water so that it can wick up. Once you have that water in, replace, and then you'll just leave this sit for, depending on the soil mix, somewhere between half an hour and an hour. All right, so it's been about a half hour, and if you look closely at the soil here, you can tell that it is much moister. It also shrunk down just a little bit in the cell trays. It won't always do that, but it's much more moist. It's fully saturated through. It's kind of like a wet sponge right now. Now, you don't want it to be extremely wet at any given point. So at this point, you're going to pour out any excess water that remains in the bottom of the pot or of the tray. Okay, now that we have removed the water from inside the tray, it's time to seed the tomatoes and peppers. So now take your chopstick or coffee stirrer, whatever you're planning to use to maneuver the seeds, dip it in some water, and then stick it into where you're keeping your seeds, and they'll stick. At that point, you'll just place it into the soil and then bury it. Tomatoes and peppers both like to be buried about 1/4 inch deep, so not incredibly deep, but you want to make sure they're covered and not seeing the light. I usually put about 2 per cell, and that way, if any of them don't germinate, you have some redundancy built in. You're more likely to get a plant and not have an empty cell. On the flip side, this does mean you may have to be a bit cutthroat and thin these out later. So beware. If it's hard for you to pull out a young plant or clip off a young plant, well, you'll just have to get used to it. because this little cell is too small for 2 individual plants to live in. I like to put them about an inch apart within there. If you put them closer, that's fine, but they're going to be a little more tangled up, and thinning them later on will be a little bit more of a problem. So now that we have all of our seeds in place, we'll just want to take the dome, set it over the top. Now, a lot of people think that they need to grow the plants under the dome the whole time, and that's not true. Really, the dome, its sole purpose is to maintain humidity while the seeds are germinating. After that point, it becomes much more important that you regulate the humidity so that it's not too humid. So as soon as we see germination, this will come off and it will stay off the rest of the time. From here, we'll take this inside, roll out our heat mat, plug it in, and then leave this on top. We should expect germination probably within 7 to 10 days. Sometimes it can be a little slower, sometimes a little faster. But with the tomato and pepper seeds, which prefer their temperature around 70 to 90 degrees, soil temperature around 70, 90 degrees, as long as we're maintaining that, they're usually pretty fast to come up. So we'll see, as soon as we start seeing some germination, we'll take a look and see which ones come up first and how they respond to it. So now we've brought the tray in and put it on top of the seedling heat mat. And inside, where the temperature stays relatively stable, this will be a perfect place for these to germinate. The hood will maintain moisture inside, and it will also keep the temperature, again, a little bit more stable. If you do see that it dries out along the top a little bit, this probably won't happen, but it could. This is when you take the spray bottle, just lift up the dome, and give it a misting. One thing people often ask is, do we need to put a light on it? And we will eventually, or we'll need to put it in a light, in an area with a light source. But at the moment, this is just germination and is not necessary. So this could go in a closet. But I wouldn't recommend that because you want to be there to see when they do germinate. In any case, this will sit maybe 7 to 10 days before germination. Sometimes it's a little more quick than that. Sometimes it's a little slower. And at that point, we'll do another video and move on from there. Thanks very much for watching Down to Earth's Garden to Table series. Please remember to like us on YouTube and Facebook if you've enjoyed this video.